Hi everyone, Ed Robertson, hoping you're enjoying the holiday weekend. We are taking a few days off ourselves and we'll be back with a brand new edition of TV Confidential next week. In the meantime, we thought we'd bring you what we'll call a blast from the past, an excerpt from one of our conversations that you may have heard before, but probably haven't heard in a long time. We hope you'll enjoy.
Hi, this is John Biner. You're listening to TV Confidential. Well, let's hear it for him. Come on out here.
And welcome back to the very Merry Christmas Parade. We're coming to you live from Walt Disney World in Florida. And sitting next to me this year in his first appearance as co-host is Regis Philbin. And Merry Christmas.
Well, Merry Christmas to you, Joan. Thanks very much. It's a thrill for me to be here with you today. You know, the first thing that caught my eye was the fact that really is the Magic Castle.
People think it's a painting.
I thought it was a painting all these years.
No, it's real.
A little scrim in front of it, but gee, it's terrific to be here with you.
Well, it's great to have you here. We have a lot of Christmas excitement at Walt Disney World this year. 2 parades. Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, thank you. Why do you point to me when you say Beast? How do you like this? And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, dinosaurs, we've got everything. And let's get things started now by going over to the Disney MGM studios with Mayim Bialik.
Regis Philbin, of course, had a long history with the Walt Disney Company, so much so that he was named a Disney legend back in 2011. Greg Ehrbar is not a Disney legend, but he did work with Regis on many occasions throughout his career with Disney, and Greg's here to share a few memories of working with Regis.
Well, I was very happy and very grateful to be able to share this, actually, Ed, because Regis, to some people, came off as this blustering, look what happened to me on the way to the post office, and I'm out of control kind of guy. And
he enunciated stuff.
Yeah, it was a sort of this, he created a persona that was almost a caricature that he sort of created over a period of time, and Dana Carvey, which he loved, helped him refine it. And what I was able to do was to make use of that also, because I actually had to write a script for him, several scripts, for the the Disney Parks Christmas and Easter specials. There used to also be an Easter special too. And they were sort of like the Macy's shows, but a little bit different because they were more individual pre-recorded segments that were inserted in, either to promote attractions or to have musical numbers elsewhere on the property. So they were live, but they were done in such a way that there would be these video inserts that would be in there as well. And because they were live, they were very, very complicated shows to make, and they used the same kind of staffs that Macy's used, many of the same directors. We had Chico Fernandez, but they later used Gary Halverson, who worked on some of the greatest sitcoms of all time, and the Brad Lockman Productions, who also did the parades for Macy's. So it was the same group of people, very, very competent people. A lot of the people from the Central Florida area who I loved working with also worked on other TV projects with me. And Regis and Joan Lunden. And I had been working there for a while and wanted to do the parades in the worst way because I loved watching them. Now, they had started in 1981. First host was Mike Douglas and Joan Lunden. And after a while, they brought in Regis to be what they called man on the street, because that's what he did best. Yeah. He would go into the crowd and he'd say, hey, where are you from? And, let's sing a song and all this kind of thing. Regis was an off-the-cuff improviser. Yeah. That's what he did. One thing Regis hated was a script. So I was very nervous going into this because the 1991 parade was the very first one that Regis co-hosted with Joan Lunden. So that was a very different proposition. He was no longer the man on the street. The person on the street that year was Mayim Bialik. And I actually had to set up things for her, suggested questions, things like that. But she still had to wing it. When you're on the street, you have to go with what you're going with.
Absolutely.
And so there are things, the setups, some of the questions, and then the throwback back to you. That stuff is on a teleprompter. Right. So that has to be written as well. But you still have to think on your feet. When you're on the set, and by the way, when you saw them on that set, they were really in the park. They were actually in a section of Tomorrowland in a restaurant that had a balcony that looked out over the castle at the time. They kept moving where the set was. Sometimes it was in Main Street on the town square. Sometimes it was at the end of Main Street. This particular year, so the castle was really behind them. It was not a fakey thing. It was not CG. And they did the parade, but they didn't. Well, first of all, let me explain something to those who wonder, well, why would you have to write it? Well, because
you're right. There's a lot more stuff written in television than you realize. I mean, you look at your nightly news. You know, a lot of that stuff. I mean, you're reading off a teleprompter, and yes, there are some things you can improvise on the spot, but because everything is timed to the second, which I suspect is where you're going with this. That's why you have certain staples of the broadcast written out for people to refer to.
Precisely that. And so when you look closely, if you watch Macy's or if you watch the Rose Parade, look at the desk that they're sitting at. There's usually a festive bouquet, or there's some poinsettias by the microphones. That's because behind it, and you can pretty much see them, there are loose leaf binders. And inside the binders, there's usually one page that has whatever script for each segment is on that page. And then on the other page, what we call the fun facts.
Yeah.
But in sports, it would be the color.
Yeah.
And here's why there's two hosts. There's one host to look either on the street or on the monitor or wherever to call out things. And then the other host looks at the facts, who is not on camera, or they're both not on camera, whatever. The other one, that prompts the other one to say, oh, look, Regis, it's Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And then Regis says, Pinocchio was made and it was the first thing, that kind of thing. And that's why there are usually two.
Yeah.
Joan Lunden was astonishing at the way she could back time in her head, the way she made it seem effortless.
Yeah.
And could be, and she was also very, very nice, very sincere. And during the breaks, they would still be talking. And a Vaseline intensive care lotion commercial came on with her in it. And Regis said, Joan, do you even really use any of that stuff? And she said, I won't advertise something if I don't really use it. Yeah, I use it. It's good. So if we go back a few weeks, it takes about 5-6 months to put one of those shows together. Mm-hmm. And when we found out Regis was going to be a host, he was nervous because he isn't a script guy.
Yeah.
He likes to wing it, and he doesn't like to follow one. So I'm nervous because, first of all the writers who'd worked with him before didn't have to do that. And Regis kids around with Yanni Needles and all, and they say, boy, is he going to give you a hard time? Boy, is he going to? And he usually says, where's my writer? Where's my writer? Where's the writer I had before? And I'm like, oh, boy. So first thing I thought was, I got to study everything about what he does. And so I took notes and watched every Regis and Kathy Lee at the time that I could, and every single inflection, every background detail I could to write it into the script. So whatever he said had to sound like it. And I bought a box of those crackers he was selling with joy.
Nabisco Harvest Crisp Crackers.
Oh, yeah. So we would have them in the read-through in case he was going to say, you got the wrong crackers. Who knows? I didn't know what he was going to be like.
Yeah.
I had no idea if that was the persona I was going to encounter. And now here's the other thing is we had fun facts, but there was just a few. And because you know me, Ed, I tend to want to push something to the ultimate zenith of completion, especially when it comes to Disney and background information. I hate the word trivia because it makes me sound trivial. I wrote 52 pages of new fun facts.
Yes, that is why we use fun facts or factoids.
Factoids, yes. And they were for the left sides of the pages.
Yeah.
And I sent them to Dave Smith at the archives, and they were all approved. And we, each time you had new pages, you had to use different colors, same thing, and all that. And when I came in, one of the producers actually said, Craig, 52 pages. And Regis said, I love fun facts. I love fun facts. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love this man. Thank you. So right away I got the inkling that Regis was going to be a good guy, And I took a picture of the two lions that looked very much the same, Prince John from Robin Hood and King Leonidas from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And Joan said, finally, I got a picture of these two so I can explain what, because when we see them on the street, we have to guess, what we're looking at. So it was things like that they wanted. I actually had two friends read the script for me beforehand, playing Regis and Joan, so that it would sound like them and you would hear it and say if it was right. So when Regis came in, he said, "This sounds like me." So we knew we were in
That's
a
a compliment.
Shape. Yeah. And so they did a read-through, just like a television sitcom.
Yeah.
They actually did the whole show and could ask questions and I'd come to it. I wrote jokes for him, and I thought, this is, and some of them were terrible. And they'd look at me like, okay, and and we had Donald Duck on the screen. So I said, sometimes he gets out of control. And he says, do you want me to? I said, and he called me Gregor. He gives everybody a nickname. He says, I'm going to make it work for you. I'm going to make it work for you, Gregor. I'm going to make it work. Did I do that? But when he would do it, he'd wink, because if he needled you, it meant he liked you. Yeah. And I noticed that one of the producers, who was a super nice guy named Andy, he continued to produce the parades for years. He would say, he's going to look at me with that face. I'm going to see his face. I better get this right because I'm going to see that face. And there were certain people that he didn't do that to at all. So I thought, gee whiz, he doesn't like them very much, does he? Because, I'd walk in and says, Gregor, So, so one of the other producers and I met him at the hotel that he was staying at and sat down with him and went over the script with him personally so that he could get really comfortable with it, because he really had never done this sort of thing, and it's extremely hard. Yeah. And then Joan Lunden also guided him through so that he was comfortable with it. And you gotta give it to out of the box, he did a fantastic job. And what people also don't, at least back then when it was done live, because the show has morphed into more of a variety show now. So I have no idea what's live and what's not nowadays. But back then, the show was on the East Coast from 10 to 12. So it was probably 8 to 10 here on the West Coast. 7 to 9. And it was also shown internationally for the armed services. So it was all over the world. But the armed services version was actually shot 2 days earlier. And that was for two reasons. One is because then it could be edited and sent to them, and they'd have it by Christmas everywhere, where they couldn't send a live feed. And it was also so that in case it rained on Christmas Day, they could run the pre-taped one, and it would just say pre-recorded at the beginning. And so that was the pre-recorded one. So we actually did that 2 days before, on the 23rd of Christmas, and then we did the actual live show on the 25th. And we finished at noon, and then everybody packed up, and it was like no one was ever there doing that.
Greg Ehrbar is with us via Zoom. Greg worked with Regis Philbin for many years on the annual Disney Christmas Parade telecast, which Regis co-hosted with Joan Lunden for many years in the 1990s. One more item: if you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to the TV Confidential podcast, or better yet, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or wherever you listen to our podcast.